Thurman, saxophonist and vocalist, and today we are on the Haven Hang. Thank you so much for joining us. I have a really, really special guest that I am honored and really happy and excited to share with you today and get to talk with and ask questions and just have a great conversation. The incredible, phenomenal, legendary Bertha Hope is joining me today as my special guest. So please give it up for Bertha Hope.
Hi, thank you so much. I don't know who's out there, but hi, everybody, and thank you for being here. Thank you for inviting me, Camille.
Of course, it's an honor. Just to let people know who, if you're not familiar, I just want to say a few words about Bertha. She's one of the living legends, and she's toured extensively with people like Nat Adderley, Dizzy Gillespie, and Eddie Henderson, while also being a respected educator and band leader, with several albums under her leadership. In 2018, she won the National Jazz Museum in Harlem's Legends of Jazz Award. She was born and raised in Los Angeles, California, and she attended Manual Arts High School. As a youth, she performed in numerous Los Angeles clubs. She studied piano at the Los Angeles Community College and later received her BA in early childhood education from Antioch. During her youth, Bertha played music with and learned from other young musicians in her neighborhood, some of them including Richie Powell, Elma Hope, who eventually became her husband. After the passing of Elma Hope, she continued his legacy by performing his music as well as carrying her torch and performing as a band leader, and also taking on the responsibility of being a mentor to so many other young musicians like myself and Lakeisha Benjamin and so many others. Bertha is a treasure, and I'm just honored and happy to have her today with me to share her wisdom with the rest of the world, especially the young lionesses that are coming up and becoming great musicians. And thank you, Bertha, for joining me today.
No, it's my pleasure, believe me. Really is.
So, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I just wanted to say I think this is a wonderful thing you're doing. And I wish that
the product, and it charged me twice. So it's the same product. You know, it just charged me twice when I changed.
Sorry about that, Bertha. Are you there?
Okay, I'm on mute.
Sorry about that. Okay, you're good now.
Yeah. This is a wonderful thing that you're doing for other young women. Nothing like this existed while I was coming up. And just the idea that there's more than a handful of women musicians in one place at one time is really a remarkable thing. And to have you all get together in a forum like this, and to have the forum be a consistent offering is really the kind of thing that can lay some groundwork, the vehicle for some groundwork to help young women find their place and keep it.
That's right.
So thank you.
Oh, I love you, Bertha. So I want to ask you, how did you get started in playing the music? What made you have that moment of, I have to play? There's nothing else in the world that I want to do but just perform.
Oh, wow. Well, I came from a house where music was very, very important. My father earned his living as a dramatic baritone during the from 1915 to 1930. He was on the road, and that was the era of Paul Robeson. I'm just going to put some names out there so you can frame my father in this, in that context. Marian Anderson, Sidney Bechet, Jack Johnson was the prize-fighting heavyweight champion of the world. U.B. Blake.
Oh, wow.
people like that were traveling all over Europe in road shows and in reviews and in venues, many of which were what were called command performances for royalty, for the British Empire. So wherever the British flag was, there were Black entertainers, and my father was one of them. So think about the colonization of the world and the British flag. That's where my father was, traveling by steamship. So I came from that kind of background. My mother was a dancer. She danced briefly in the Cotton Club and Apollo chorus line. She was what was referred to as a pony. The little dancers who weighed 99 pounds, wet, and were about 5 feet tall. And then there were the showgirls like Josephine Baker, who was tall and willowy. These girls all looked alike. They were cafe au lait. If you know what that means, that's a very light-skinned brown girl who looks like coffee with cream in it. You could hardly tell one from the other. So my mother was in that kind of a chorus line. And so I heard that music. She was also an opera buff. So I listened to this music from a time immemorial. I can't remember when there was some kind of music going on that ranged from opera to what were called the Negro spirituals. Nobody knows the trouble I've seen. Go Down Moses. My father sang those. I sang those in the church. So music was around me all the time. Mm. I think the turning point for me, since I did have other interests in high school, but the turning point was a Bud Powell record. When I was about 15. The record was had the piece Un Poco Loco on it.
Yeah.
And although I had been listening in a kind of a limited way to a limited amount of recordings that my brother and I collected and shared with 2 other people, one of which was Billy Higgins, the famous drummer, and the other was a dancer, a graphic artist named Daniel LaRue Johnson, who's left us now. But the 3 of us used to get together in the courtyard and share records, pass records back and forth. And Danny loaned me this Bud Powell record, and I went home and put that record on. And I think what really got me was the tritone substitution that it starts on and keeps that going, and it had this driving force. I stayed up all night long. I went to bed about 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. That was from about 3 when I got home from school, listening to that record over and over. And I think that's when something in my soul said, that's what I want to do, and that's how I want to sound. Yeah. So that was the aha moment for me. That was the moment that said, oh my goodness, I love this music, but this is a place I want to investigate. That was it.
It's funny you say that because I kind of had a similar experience too. Mm-hmm. When I first got into the music, I fell in love with Dexter Gordon. And Dexter Gordon, when I first heard the tenor saxophone, it was in band class, and I was just like, I don't want to play that. All the guys are gonna make fun of me because I'm little, and there's no other ladies playing the tenor, and it sounds all big and low. But then when I listened to Dexter's Second Balcony Jump on the album Go, I had the same experience as you. I caught that fire, and it just was like, I got to figure out whatever it is. I don't know what it is. I can't understand what it is right now, but I just know if I keep listening, I'm going to eventually figure it out because I have to figure it out. Uh-oh.
Unmute. Okay. Oh, God, it came back again.
You're back. What did you say? Because you were on mute. Uh-oh. I think you muted again.
Oh.
Okay, you're here. I can hear you.
Okay, I can only see myself now, but
that's all right.
I know what you look like. Okay, so yeah, those moments are undescribable. They're just between you and whatever that force is inside of you that says this is the direction that you're going to follow. Spirit.
It is spirit. It is. And it's a beautiful moment to be able to experience that.
It is, and it's almost like something's caught fire and glowing inside of you, and you keep flaming, you keep fanning that flame, you know, and I think those moments like that they're really precious when they happen, when you get up to another place and you say, oh, I want to go here, you know.
Yeah.
You can almost like stair steps move when you're moving, when you're on the move.
Yeah, that's exactly it. I want to ask you, I know one time we were on our way to a gig and I got to ask you about Bud Powell. Could you share with us your memories of what it was like knowing Bud?
Well, you know, this is the curious thing. I wouldn't say it's curious, it's just the way conditions presented themselves. After hearing that record, I went on to hear other records and try to listen as much as I could to Bud when he was really at his zenith. But I didn't meet him. I went to see him live in a beautiful club in Los Angeles when I was, 15, 16. Mm-hmm. And he was, you could see that something had happened to him that helped the light go out, you know. Now this club, if you can imagine, it was mirrored on all sides. All the walls were mirrors and the ceiling was mirrored.
Oh, wow.
And he was at a beautiful piano, sounded great. I wanted to go up and be a fan, you know. Oh, Mr. Powell, I love the way you play. You know, that little girl kind of thing when you are around somebody that you idolize.
Yeah.
But I saw him looking up at himself in the mirror.
Oh, that's why.
What?
Sorry about that. We muted.
Okay. And he had a kind of a glazed over look in his eyes. And he didn't get up. It was a break. And he sat there at the piano looking at himself. And I thought, this is not a good idea for me to go up and approach him and be a fan, because he seems to be in a place that's not approachable. That was the first time that I heard him play live.
Right.
And my association in my head went on for years because I was lucky enough to take piano lessons from his brother, Richie. Richie Powell was the pianist with the Max Roach Clifford Brown band, which was rehearsing right around the corner from my house at Eric Dolphy's house. So I went to Eric's to listen to Richie, who didn't sound like his brother, but the association was obviously there. And so I took lessons from Richie Powell. So, but that was all my connection to Bud was to take lessons from Richie, if that was as close as I could get.
Yeah.
And he did have a lot of the same voicings, although he had a style of his own, that rapid fire right hand and that stabbing left hand, jabbing left hand excitement was there for me too. And then years passed, I didn't see him live again. And of course he went through, he was one of the musicians that was brutalized by the police, along with Miles Davis. Elmo Hope was also. Those are sad pieces of police brutalization that go back that far and affected the music industry. And the next time I saw him, he was making his way toward Elmo's house to visit. And I didn't see him until he reached our apartment. So he was ill the next time I saw him.
Oh, wow.
And he had walked halfway across the Bronx to find Elmo. He was staying with Thelonious Monk and telling Thelonious that he wanted to see Elmo. And they were a little slow about bringing him to see Elmo, so he stuck on his own.
Oh, wow.
And ended up at Elmo's mother's house. And his mother directed him to another Bronx address. And simultaneously, Elmo was walking toward his mother's house, and Bud was walking toward Elmo's house, and they met in the street.
Oh, wow.
And Elmo brought him home. But that was very tragic. It was bittersweet because he was suffering from tuberculosis. And we lived in a two flights up. We were in a walk up at the time. And it took him a long time to get up the steps. And of course, here's my idol now.
Yeah.
But I offered him a glass of water. We kept him, we let him stay. They couldn't visit. Elmo just sat with him. And he kept saying, "Oh, I wanted to see you. I couldn't wait to see you. I'm so glad to be here."
Yeah.
So that, those are the two times I was actually physically in his presence. But he had such a huge impact on how I wanted to sound. So after hearing, it's so funny, I heard him first, and then I heard Thelonious, and then I heard Bud, then I heard Elmo, I'm sorry. And the three of them I would credit, and you young ladies can do that research if it so interests you, to see the other musicians who really impacted the way the piano sounded during the beginning of the 40s, and that break from swing into what was called bebop and the small band era, the quartet, quintet, sextet sound. Thelonious, Bud, and Elmo really helped to shape the sound of the piano during that time. Sonny Rollins, Charlie Parker, that whole sound, I think.
Wow.
They were very much a part of that.
Yeah, that's a lot of great history, what you just said right there. And I think the beautiful thing that I love when I get to talk to you is that you share how much it was like a community at that time. It was a lot of times for us younger folks, we just see, oh, in the history books, oh, so and so and so and so. But to talk to you, you were there. So you're able to articulate, well, this was actually a community. All of us were actively creating and working on this music. We knew each other. We had dinner with each other. We had the same struggles together. We were in this together and created our community.
Yes, very much so. The thing that I'm really the most disturbed about, though, is that the women were so isolated in my neighborhood. There were many women musicians who didn't even know each other. And I didn't get to meet a lot of them at all. I was lucky enough to meet Vi Red, who was the first, by the way, very first woman that I ever saw with a horn in her mouth that was not a clarinet or a flute.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was in high school, I mean, my whole musical experience was really rich in terms.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. I think your earring is knocking into the mic.
Oh, is it?
The left.
The earring? Okay.
Yeah, because I think it's creating a clicking.
All right.
Okay,
it's
sorry
off.
to interrupt you.
I'll take off the other one.
Okay.
No, I didn't realize that was just my vanity there. Okay.
Okay.
All right. So women could play clarinets and flutes, period. When I was in junior high and high school, the band instructor did not offer woodwinds or other brass instruments to the young girls, to the young women. You could play flute or you could play clarinet. So Vi Red was a revelation to me. Are you there? Am I off air? Oh, God.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Uh-oh, your camera went out for a second. Okay.
Okay.
You're good.
I'm good. Okay. And so when I met her, she was really one of a kind. There may have been others, but I was not exposed to them. So today it's so good that so many women who play so many different instruments are in touch with each other. And you can knock down some of the stereotypes about women not playing these instruments, because now you're here in full force. And I hope that you are looking to play together and knocking down these feelings that in order for women to really be recognized, they have to play with men. The women that I've been exposed to recently are just phenomenal. You just have to be the best that you can be under the circumstances that you find yourself in. And, but there's a bias also that if you're not better than the best man, then your opportunities are already cut by other men because they're not going to hire you. And you, Camille, are a living example of that. Look how far you have been able to take the idea of women being able to play in Lincoln Center, for example, which adds a lot of clout in the industry worldwide. For it to be 30 years old and for you to be the first woman to be in that orchestra and able to say that you were a member for a year or more, and to hold the position that you held when the orchestra is 30 years old, I think says a lot about the bias and the kind of work that this younger generation still needs to do to knock down these barriers and to have faith in themselves that they can do it and be heard. It's amazing. So that's another reason why I'm so proud of you and your work, because you're breaking down barriers and taking a lot of women through the door with you.
Oh, Bertha, you're gonna make me cry.
Well, I see that as the truth. I'm a witness. I remember writing letters to Lincoln Center, to Wynton Marsalis, and to several other influential people 30 years ago that they should hire a band that had some recognition of the older people who were holding down the fort, waiting for a place like Jazz at Lincoln Center to be built so that they could have the best accommodations and have their music presented well. And they were denied also in favor of under 30. So there have been all kinds of biases in the industry, and influential people make influential moves. So that's why I think learning the history of the music and how it has left women out is something worthwhile to do. So
I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was gonna ask you, speaking on that, did you encounter that when you were a young musician and trying to make your career as a pianist, having people take you seriously as a pianist and not look at your gender first, but more so listen to you for how well you play and take you seriously? How did you deal with that coming up?
Well, I started in the business really early. My mother had to be approached to let me play in the Johnny Otis big band. That was one of my first gigs, but I refused to wear a dress. The bandmaster said that the uniform was navy blue suits. So I wore a navy blue suit on the gig. But yeah, I was a kid, so I was so happy to be able to have a mother that said that it was okay. She put up a lot of restrictions, but she did allow me those certain amount of hours. I think the first gig was one night a week at a huge club. It was a dance club. And for her to allow me to do that and have a chaperone was a big step, I thought, in the right direction. So that I was taken seriously, I think, because first of all, I was approached by the band leader to be in the band, and there wasn't any, I didn't have any cleavage. I didn't have on a short skirt. I wasn't enticing, or the management didn't insist that I dress any differently. That changed with other gigs later on. But that first gig, I wore a navy blue suit and a pair of black patent leather shoes. And I thought that was a pretty good thing, actually. It took the idea of me being objectified out of the picture right away. Other gigs, I did other gigs where that was definitely not the case. In women's big band, our skirts had to be short and we had to be made up, and the band leader was always telling us about our cleavage. You know what they want.
How do you deal with that? Because I remember I had an experience where I did a festival and I was asked to bring a band, an all women's band. And we
Mm-hmm.
came out and we did the concert, but it wasn't until we literally got on stage that we realized that we were hired for a gimmick for that
Oh,
particular show. And we looked around
wow.
and noticed that, wow, it wasn't even really about our musicianship being here to present our musicianship. They just wanted to have just the girls. And for a second, I remember right before we got on stage, I felt really guilty. I was like, ladies, I'm so sorry for bringing you all this way because I wanted this to be an opportunity for us to be respected for playing. And the way we were being treated was as if, oh, let the girls, toot, and then, all right, get them off the stage and let the guys do their thing. But we made it a point to get up on that stage and kick behind, and it was an afterthought. But how do you deal with those kind of situations where your musicianship is not being respected and you realize, oh wow, this is something else that's having to do nothing about with the music?
Well, I think you have to investigate as much as you can to see what that's about before you get in that situation. But you're going to encounter that, I think. Where we live in a society where everything is sold by some sexual innuendos. It's sold by cleavage and short skirts, and uh, the popular music makes it almost impossible for you to look at a video or um, anything that's geared to the younger population without seeing some reference uh, to objectifying women as sexual beings, sexual objects. And it's in the music business. It's like it is in every other business.
Right.
It's if you can find out those facts beforehand and try to diffuse it, that's the best thing that you can do. But I mean, I've been on the bandstand where we were, the band leader told us what to expect. So we were in the band and we acted accordingly. That was years ago, but uh, I don't think it changes unless you do something to change it.
Right.
And that means staying focused, staying together as women, and defining what it is that you want to happen, and try and change things from that perspective. It's very difficult to turn down gigs if you think that that's what's going on.
Right.
It's difficult to turn them down if you can't find out what it is you could have done about it to change it, But I think you're presenting yourselves the way you want to be seen. You have to be the change that you want to see.
Right.
And sometimes that means dressing a certain way so that the people are going to have to stay focused more on what you sound like than what you look like. But all through the ages, I mean, why did Hazel Scott have to twirl around on two pianos when she could play one better than most men? What about people like Dorothy Donegan, who, used to do all these exaggerated leg movements and make reference to her body parts when she could play almost as well as 10 men. It happens all through the history of this music that women have to fight an extra battle to be taken seriously. It's like any other institutionalized idea that is ingrained so deeply that other people don't notice it. You have to bring it to people's attention.
Right.
And you're competing with a world of men. Men still run this business and they still think that you're just a novelty. the women nowadays are playing so fiercely, Tilda. I think that the novel aspect can be addressed by the fact that you have been trained so well and so diligent and so fierce. I mean, I really do believe that it takes a concerted effort, but you have to come together as a group and make your own demands. But you've got to be, you've got to find organized ways to combat it. Unfortunately, the union I think that they're changing, but they've been such weak advocates for women in the jazz field before. So you have to really make that union also work for you. They're desperate for new members now because they've failed so many people. People have lost the idea that the union will do anything for them in the jazz world. Very, very narrow focus for who really gets supported by them. So, but it doesn't have to be that union. It just needs to be a unified force. Women need to come together as you are making an attempt to provide a floor for women to talk about these things, these issues, and come together with a platform, come together with ways to have this stop.
Right.
But it won't stop without your action. Men are not going to do it. You are going to have to do it. Women are going to have to do it. I'm sorry.
No, you're absolutely right. And if I could add something real quick, it takes both parties in the community and making this happen. Even when you see actions perpetuating a behavior that is not conducive for a good, healthy environment, whether it's, seeing somebody experiencing bias because of their gender and not being respected because of their playing ability, being able to play at the same level as everybody else or vice or what have you. I think It's important for men and women to come together and work and create these communities where we have safe spaces where we can talk about these things and figure out how we can have solutions that help better us as a community, because we are a community.
You are a community.
As musicians, we all are striving to make it out here doing the one thing that we love. So we have to be honest with ourselves, but also at the same time take the actions to have those conversations and creating spaces to make things better. Really quick, I know we're running out of time and I want to have some time for some people to ask questions, but if you had to give some advice to some young musicians, because the reason why the Haven Hang was put together was to be a platform for young women musicians beginning their journey as musicians to receive advice from elders and established women musicians, and of course men also chime in too. But if you had to give some advice, what would you say? I know we talked about it a little bit, but if you could share.
Well, one of the things that I would really encourage you to do is to do some research on women as much as you can, women jazz musicians in the past, and see if you can piece together where they fit in. For instance, Lester Young's sister, Irene. Is anybody familiar with her and the impact that she had on Lester's life? Lil Hardin Armstrong. Are people really understanding what a wonderful musician she was and how she worked with Lewis? See what you can find out. Women have been so neglected in the history books, but it's important to be aware of who they were and where they fit. Just to also give yourself some courage that women have been out here for a long time, undersung, unsung, underrated, and pretty much underappreciated. So appreciate them by at least trying to find out something about people like that a little bit more. Even Mary Lou Williams, she's a doing, she's being researched now by some colleagues of yours. But she had a terrific impact on the musicians of the day. And the other thing I would say is to read some of the history of people like Thelonious Monk. I would encourage everybody to read the book by Robin D.G. Kelly. It's thick, but it's a wonderful read. And along with learning about Thelonious and his friends and his experience, it gives so much background history on the era that he came through. And so, and the third thing I would say is learn everything you can about how vicious the business of music is, from who owns your music to the people who were encouraging everyone to establish your own publishing companies years ago and who were, threatened with death because of it. All of the the streaming, all of the ways your music is available today. Stay on top of your own business and find out how it works today and what the next steps may be going forward. You may be somebody who invents a new app in order to deal with music. Make sure that you do that. And the other thing is to just really take care of your health. Try to stay away from the addictions. I know that some of the young women are taking alcohol in large quantities. I won't say anybody's name, but if you see a sister in trouble, try to reach out to her. And alcohol and drugs have always been a part of the jazz scene, but they don't have to be. But you do have to really be vigilant, or they will sneak up without your even being aware of it. So I think that women today are so much better informed, and because of school situations and university protections and ways that you become a community inside of an institute of jazz, is a wonderful way to stay in touch and get your own power groups together so that you don't feel alone in the pursuit of this wonderful gift that we all are trying to nurture, or this calling. The music makes everything look better, but there are so many things around it that we have to preserve and protect. So those are some of the things that I would offer. Am I on? Hello?
Thank you for that, Bertha. You are on.
Oh, okay. I lost my own sound, so I didn't know.
No, you're there. We're going to take this time now to open it up for questions. I know we have some ladies in the chat room and then also out there in Facebook. I know we're streaming on Facebook. If you have any questions you'd like to ask Bertha or me, now's the time. Please feel free. It can be anything about the music. For our young ladies, it could be about the process of becoming a musician, anything. I'm going to unmute everybody in the chat room. If you have a question, raise your hand on the using the raise hand feature, and I'll get to you. Or you could post a question in the chat bubble. Ladies, you have any questions?
Woo.
Okay, Whitney.
Hi, Bertha. It's Whitney. How are you?
Oh, hi, Whitney. I'm good.
I've worked with you many, many times. I love working with you, and I see you even go to the jam sessions. What I've noticed is that when, as a singer, you know the ability to comp with a vocalist, because you work with a lot of vocalists as well as doing your own solo thing. What advice would you give to a vocalist or a lead player as far as being an accompanist and comping for them? You know, as a vocalist, don't know, we know the basic things of knowing your key, your arrangement, and all that, but what particular things would you say to give advice to our, especially our young vocalists, when we're working with a pianist?
Well, I think the first thing that a young vocalist needs to know in order to be able to talk to a pianist is her range. So she needs to be able to let somebody know what her key range is. So if she's coming with an arrangement or if she's coming without an arrangement, she definitely needs to know what kind of range of voice is in so the pianist can place her in the right key. The other thing is to pay attention to your phrasing and what it is that you need from a vocalist, from a pianist. You want some architecture underneath your phrasing. Where are you starting your phrases? Where are you ending them? Are you giving the pianist an opportunity to give you a floor? Are you listening to what they're doing? You don't want a pianist who's going to lead you, but you want to also follow. You want to be able to follow where the pianist is, what cues they're giving you, so that you're not ahead of the accompaniment or you're not behind the accompaniment. So you have to feel confident that when you're the singer, the accompanist, the pianist is your accompaniment. That's what the word comp means. They're accompanying you. So you have to take control. I want to see a singer come up to the bandstand and announce what it is she's going to do, and in the key and in the tempo, the time signature, and be confident in your abilities to do that. So those are things to be aware of and to learn in order, you need to feel like you're commanding the bandstand just as any horn player would do when he's singing through his horn. You want to be able to have that same kind of confidence. Okay, Whitney.
Thank you, sweetie. I love working with you. If you guys ever get a chance to work with Bertha Hope, do it. She knows what's happening.
Thank you, Whitney.
We have a question from Andrea. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Her question is, how important is mentoring in the music career? Who would you say influenced you?
Who would I say influenced me? Well, certainly my husband did influence me a lot. That was Elmo Hope. He influenced the way I sounded, I think, because our relationship, I mean, we couldn't play together. We both played the same instrument. But he did send me on many a gig that I would never have gotten on my own. And that was a real learning curve for me. I mean, those people went back to people like Sonny Greer, who played drums with Duke Ellington, and I traveled a bit with him. So mentoring took on many shapes. Mentoring is, I think, it's like having someone who has experienced what you may experience, or who has experienced things that they don't want you to experience, to try and lead you away from the pitfalls of the business. And there are so many. There are just so many. The financial pitfalls, being underpaid for your work, being influenced by alcohol or drugs that you have to really stay away from, being influenced by men who really are perhaps maybe more jealous of you, or who see that you are special and talented and want to pull you away from your practice or your endeavors. So mentoring, I think, is important. It's just as important as having someone guide you. If you were a swimmer, teaching you the ropes of swimming. It's you should look for a mentor that has those qualities that you want to take on for yourself. Right. So that would be somebody who plays, somebody that you want to emulate, somebody that has a lifestyle that you want to aspire to, someone who will inspire you to work as hard as you can to play your instrument and to be able to express yourself the way you like to, someone that you can enjoy, who's very informal with you. So I think mentorship is very important, and you may get that in the long term, or you may get that in just 30-second bursts of somebody giving you some information that you didn't expect. And then, oh,
that's true.
Or shout on the bandstand, learn those changes.
Right.
Yeah. I have another part I'd like to add to this question, Bertha.
Yes.
For some young women, well, this is a kind of a pre-pandemic question, but for some young women, we know that for everybody in learning this music, as you said, the mentorship is key, and being able to see people perform, get to interact with them. But I know for myself and some other young women, if they're like 14, 15, 16 years old, our friends that are guys can go and see somebody perform at the Village Vanguard or whatnot at 9, 10 o'clock at night, maybe on a Thursday, Friday night. But for us, our parents are like, you will not leave this home by yourself. How did you go out or get to hear and see and learn this music firsthand and get that mentorship experience? And what would you advise to our younger musicians to be able to get that experience?
So are you talking about hopefully when the pandemic is over, or are you talking about now?
Hopefully when the pandemic is over, or even now.
Well, I had a brother. He was younger than I was, but he put Maybelline on his lip and painted on a mustache. And that's how we snuck into nightclubs to hear the music when I was 15, 16. That was in Los Angeles. They were pretty lax. I mean, we didn't sit at the bar. We drank 7-Up. We weren't rowdy. We were not calling attention to ourselves. So in most of the clubs, we didn't have too many problems getting in. But it was really nice to have a brother who looked older than I did and loved the same music I loved.
Right.
You used to do those matinees too, right? Bertha, you used to do matinees?
No, I didn't. No, they were all at night. All the gigs were nighttime gigs. I don't even remember any matinees, doing any matinees. But I think we have to work that out too for younger people. And that's a good suggestion. Having things that are in the daytime or before nighttime that are designed for these young girls.
Right.
you know, we got to design it for them. I don't know. I mean, going out at night in New York is not quite the same as going out at
No.
night in LA. I was in a car, okay? There wasn't any such thing as public transportation from one club to another, to spread out. And so getting there, it was easier, for one thing. And so, but I used to belong here in New York. I used to belong to a meetup group for women to go out and listen to music. And we used to meet at a certain place and travel together as a group for safety. 15 or 16 women would get together and maybe go to a club in Brooklyn on public transportation, but we were together for safety. But I think that this is something older musicians could really take up as a project to help girls who are learning younger and faster with all the technology, for them to be able to hear the people that they want to emulate. We need to, it's a community effort. And that's something that we might be able to raise some money to get done, is to have, to work out in some space, a place that the best of the best and people's idols can perform for a group of kids, let's say from 14 to 19, who are not able to, who shouldn't be in a nightclub.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And the more non-alcoholic places that become venues, I think helps to spread the music into a wider population for its own growth. You know, the music needs to really catch hold among younger people, but they also have to have an outlet for it.
Right.
I have to take my students to like afternoon, like Swing 46 or early, when Mittens would have the earlier thing, so they could go and play piano and jam and stuff, because like you said, it's too hard here in New York for them to go. But that's a great idea. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea. Maybe some people out there can come together, or even we could figure something out after this and how we could make those outlets available for young people, because that's part of the experience of being a musician, the apprenticeship, learning on a bandstand. You can't get that out of a textbook. You got to do it. So
no, you have to do it. You have to be around other people, and that's one of the things that the pandemic interferes with. The ideas that
yes.
you're not around other people. Oh, I thought I was going to be practicing all day. I just thought that I was going to have so much time to be alone, to write and to meditate and sit down at the piano. This was I really thought, well, I'm not putting bands together. I'm not running around rehearsing people. I don't have to go gather music. I don't have to worry about what I have on. Am I preaching to the choir here?
Right.
Yes.
The stress that it has placed on us. We're a social people. This is a social music. This is not. You don't play this music alone very often. I mean, you do, but it's a social experience.
That's right.
Among your bandmates. Among your bandmates and among the people that you're bringing the music to. Of course, you'd still be a musician if there was never another audience to hear you. But you do want to be heard, and you do feed off of that applause, and you do appreciate when you've been able to reach a group of people. So It's an idea that might be born from this experience to find some venues that are especially designed for 14 to 19-year-olds. So do you have anybody in your classes younger than 14?
Currently, no, but I've been doing a lot of workshops and master classes on Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes the question comes up from, some young people, as far as playing, opportunities to be able to play with others. And I know for young girls, particularly looking back on my experience, I didn't really get that until my 20s, because that's when I was, an adult and I was able to go out and experience those things. But
Mm-hmm.
I think for a lot of young ladies, if they're able to have the experience of playing in those situations as much as possible, it'll strengthen and empower them as a player, but also get them up to speed too. Because a lot of times for young ladies, there's that period that they're spending trying to just catch up. Because
Exactly.
for some of the guys,
that's
particularly instrumentalists, for young women, the guys, of course, they get to play and you get together. But the young ladies, just playing an instrument and being a young lady, you're dealing with a whole complex of issues as far as identity and trying to learn your instrument. And then also dealing with societal pressures of, okay, well, if you're a young woman, do you look like you're supposed to play this? Or as a young woman, you should tend to maybe hanging out with your friends or going to the mall versus spending time for yourself learning an instrument. So you're dealing with all those things. But I think if there was a space for young musicians and particularly young women instrumentalists, this might help in getting them the confidence that they need, but also the experience so they can play and be independent on the instruments and be able to grow and go out there and take over the world.
I used to take my piano students to Cleopatra's Needle because they used to have an early where you could jam for, they could jam like 5, 6 o'clock, but they're closed now. So I really don't know where to take my piano students at an early time or to jam. So I would be open if anyone knows of a place.
Well, we might have to work on finding a place. I mean, the underuse of churches.
That's a possibility.
We might just have to really look in our own community.
No, that's definitely a possibility. I have another question. I'm sorry to interrupt, Bertha.
That's all right.
From Lillian. She's asking, how would you deal with sexism and sexual harassment in jazz education? Or have you? Especially if it's coming from an authority figure like a professor or a guest artist.
Oh. Well, I think first you need to be allied with somebody, because it's always, we're still having a hard time being believed. We get blackmailed, we get bribed. That is really very difficult. I think you need to get your troops together, because it needs to stop. You need to be able to identify the perpetrator, but I think you also need to not do that as a person alone.
Right.
You need to tell somebody, and you need to tell a lot of somebody. You need to get strength in numbers and confront the issue not by yourself. The complaint might come from you, but you need to have other people observe, or maybe make sure that you find somebody who's in an administrative position. You have to gather some evidence, because just to put a charge out there with nothing to back it up will not advocate for any win for you. The idea is to get rid of and address the situation so that it doesn't happen again. So you have to collect some evidence. You may have to do some surveillance. When it's a professor, all things are very obvious. You're going to fail the class. You're going to be called a liar. All sorts of things that will make you look like you're making it up or imagining it are going to happen. But that is a very serious charge, and you need to be able to get your facts and your evidence together and have it brought to the attention of the people who might be able to do something about it, and stay with it. Stay with it. I feel for anybody who's going through that situation in an academic setting. That's really treacherous.
I would also chime in too. Again, we mentioned before, for this change to happen, it takes active community members, both men and women. And when
Yes.
a situation like this, it's important to know and understand you are not alone. And 9 times out of 10, it happened to other people probably in that scenario, and they're probably not brave enough to say anything, or maybe they're too afraid. I think what has to happen first is, one, putting together a group of people that you trust and you know that you can confide in, so that you can put your heads together and come up with a plan of action.
Right. Yeah.
Take both men and women. And even if it's a situation where it's happening in the midst, if there's another male student or another male faculty, hey, that wasn't right. All it takes is somebody standing up in that moment and putting perspective on it and saying, look, that's not how we do things in this community. This is not creating a space that's safe for everybody. You need to leave. Or if it's something where it already happened, it's important for the community to come together and stand behind the people that's being affected, because you should not have to suffer alone, one. And two, the education environment should be a safe place to learn. The last thing you should be thinking about or worrying about is anything other than just learning. And if you feel like you can't even do that, just your simple being is being threatened, then we have to do, it's urgent that we have to do something about it and make the changes necessary. Have your, like Bertha said, have everything that you remember happening, notate it, write it down so you do not forget, because sometimes when you're in shock, you forget. Have your allies, your friends, your ladies and men come together, so that when you approach the authority figures that need to step in and do something, you have all the information available to you to be able to fight it. And then if they don't do it, then you take it to the next level. Who's their authority? And you keep fighting until something is heard, and until you're heard and something is done.
And if there's a group, go ahead, Whitney.
No, I'm sorry. It happened to me. And I was, to be quite frank with you, I was scared. I was shaking when it happened to me. And I didn't have a camera. I went to the counselor and she said, did anybody witness it? Of course, nobody witnessed it. And so I left the school. I actually left the school because I couldn't go any higher up because I didn't have any proof. But I did learn later on to, when something like that happens, how to prepare myself mentally and how to reject something like that. But it was a terrible thing. And I just wanted to chime in on that. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's happened to me also. I left the band because I was sexually harassed and I just couldn't, I didn't have any allies at that point. I just left I left the band, and but it wasn't a university setting. I think if we're talking about a structured setting, like you were alluding to earlier, Camille, that the community of women and men need to be addressed, that this is a serious situation. To have a call together a meeting of all the people who might be involved and let them know this is a situation that it's going to be addressed in this next semester or in this next, that there have been so many complaints, there have been so many people who have been harassed and have had inappropriate behavior, that they've had to deal with it, and that it is going to be addressed. So you put everybody on alert, and so that people will have some confidence in each other to share what their experiences are, because it is so true. When one person has the nerve to speak up, it means that 10 other people have already been assaulted or harassed and have been too frightened to come forward to say something about it. So I think that's what I would do. I would start by letting everybody know this is a situation that has come to light, and that it's not going to be tolerated, but you're going to start doing something about it as a group. And then so people will feel like that anybody in that group would be a person that they could go to and have your ideas about how you're going to document it and how you're going to show, so that you're not going to be called a troublemaker or a liar or an imaginary inventor of terrible things for other people.
Well, I just want to take this moment to again say thank you so much, Bertha Hope, for being such an amazing person and inspiration. And thank you for spending the time with us today and sharing your experiences and your advice and your love with all of us. Again,
thank you so much for having me. I really, really appreciate it. I see Piang and Maxine Gordon and another name that I didn't recognize, that Dexter Moses. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. And Camille, this has been great. I thought,
honor. We're gonna have to bring you back again because we got so many questions we didn't get to answer.
Wow. Okay. Well, I'd be so happy to do this again. Maybe by then my technology will be a little better. Nobody knows better. Yeah. Thank you, Whitney, for all your help.
Oh, I love you, Bertha. I love you.
Love you too. Thank you, Camille.
Oh, thank you, Bertha.
Mwah, mwah, mwah. Thank you.
Camille, I just want to say how healing. I just want to tell everyone how healing, if you can go every time Camille has these, because I might be 70 years old, but I learn from the young and I learn from others, and it's so healing. And thank you so much for having this, Camille.
Oh, it's an honor. It's a privilege and an honor to be able to create this space for everybody. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. The next Haven Hang will be July. Oh, goodness, my computer's not working. Will be in 2 weeks. So please go to www.camillethurmanmusic.com/thehavenhang for the next Haven Hang, and you can RSVP or ask questions in advance. It's going to be July 29th, so put that date on your calendar. Again, I would love to thank Bertha Hope for being our special guest. I hope this was inspiring and filling to everybody, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. Take care, everybody.
Great. All right, thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.